Hello, it's Amanda and Nisa here. First of all, a really big thank you to the Tableau Fringe Festival for inviting us to have a talk. Apologies, a note just popped up on our screen saying that the internet connection might be unstable, so please let us know if you can't hear us. Okay, so today we're going to a few different perspectives. Okay, so what we're gonna, the program for today is we're first gonna give you a little introduction to the project and to ourselves. Nisa will give her perspective, I'll give my perspective, and then we're happy to have any Q&A session at the end. So if you have any questions for us, please feel free to ask us these questions when we have shown you our vises. Okay, so the idea for our presentation today was exploring two different approaches and perspectives. So we were interested in different people's points of view. So, and we thought what would be really interesting to look at. So we both find it really interesting how your background shapes the way you see the world. So for the two of us, we actually have quite similar backgrounds. We both did somewhat sciencey studying. We actually both have exactly the same training in for visual analytics. We've both been through the data school. And we thought it would be interesting to see how we both have very different experiences in life and work, and to see how these shape how we see data, how we find stories, and how we make decisions. So what we decided to do was we decided to make this a bit of a game. What we were going to do is find one data set, and we'd both go away and analyze it and see how our different perspectives form two different stories. The first step was to find some data. We had no specific requirements for this. Basically what we wanted was we wanted something that would be fun to do. We wanted some data that was relatively lighthearted and not too complicated, because this would be the best way to show the different perspectives. So the data that we found was a data set, or is a data set on speed dating. It is a survey which looks at how the participants rate different attributes in their partners, or rather their partners to be, and in themselves. So off the back of this, we did our own little experiment in which we blindfolded, as it were, each picked 5 different variables within this data and analyzed it. So in picking the data, in picking these 5 fields that we think are interesting, this is where your different perspectives come through, because dependent on your background, this will determine what you find is interesting and determines what you pick and how you shape your point of view. So without any further ado, let's introduce the two perspectives.
Hi guys, I'm Nisa. I'm a Tableau and Alteryx consultant, part of the Data School Information Lab UK. As Amanda said, we are friends, we have the same training. My background is in health, I was a dentist, but whilst I was studying public health, I came across the Data School program, and I came across also a lot of data and kind of fell in love by the perspective of helping people, analyzing their data, and helping people in a bigger scale than just helping a patient individually. So that made me come to the data school, and the rest is really just history, to be honest. And I'll pass you now for Amanda.
Hey, I'm Amanda. I guess because this is a story about how you're, as you can see from my first picture over here, it's me as a kid. I've always been a really inquisitive child, always asking questions, always wanting to know how things work. And that led me to the next stage, well, next stages really, of my life, where I pursued a career in science. This was, you know, a lot of fun. I got to do a lot of really cool stuff and see a lot of really cool data. But I also grew to realize that I actually really enjoy being around people, which is what led me to visual analytics and the consulting at the data school that both Nisa and I are a part of. And that is about me. So I'll let Nisa carry on.
So, as Amanda said, the data set was about speed dating. We thought at that point that we wouldn't have many different perspectives of how analyzing data about speed dating. It was a survey that happened in Columbia University, was done by an economist with the help of some psychologists. And what they wanted to see really, it was the relationships, how that developed during the dates that people normally have, the social encounters. But when we received the data, any survey data, there is some issues. It wasn't too bad, but there was clearness and standardization. Then after having so many fields with so many questions, the part that got my attention, and I wanted the 5 fields, was people behind the numbers. I wanted to know who are that people. And that possibly is due to my background, because as a dentist or as a health professional, you always want to know more about the people that you are with. As in consultancy too, you want to know more about. I wanted to try also the viz in tooltips. So this was my first visualization with visualizations in tooltips. Asked it for so long that I wanted to use. So what I wanted to do was, first of all, a little bit of the background, how the study was, what was the sample of the students. So it was about 551 students. It was more or less 50-50 female and male. The dates were about 4 minutes each date, and then the age for the respondents, it varied between 18 and 55. The students were from 17 different fields of study. The backgrounds were a little bit all over the place, but majority in North America. And the study occurred between 2002 and 2004 in about 21 sessions of speed dating. So how I used Tableau here was, I want to use Tableau as an although I did a dashboard to show you my process, I wanted to explore, I wanted Tableau to answer my questions. And my first question was, what was the academic background? The main bulk of the sample, what was the academic background of that sample? And the majority of them were business students, for women and for men. But the majority of business students were from a male background. The women were from a social science background. And then from there, so I had the background. I wanted to know from these students, were all of them very social or not really? Did they go out a lot? So I wanted to see which was the background that went out more, so more than twice a week. And it was, again, the business students, but formal ones were the science students and the education academia. I think we like to party. And are they confident or aren't so confident? And when I women that perceive themselves as ambitious, quite high, the percentage there, which is very good. I'm very ambitious too, and I think Amanda is, so it's quite cool.
I try to be.
And from here, I wanted to know, how do they see the others? How the others perceive them? So do they feel all in themselves, but do they feel that other people? And it was, they see more or less what they see people, the people that sees them the same way as they see themselves. And what was interesting here was that the male population, that people perceive themselves. So I think male jokes, or maybe they perceive that. So the answer was, what do you look for on a date? So quite strong relationship in relation to looks. So male rated looks very, very high. In the other aspect, it was, what did they thought that the opposite sex looks for on a date? And again, female, the male think that women look for looks, but also a little bit of intelligence too. Just a little bit. So it was quite a surprise there. Then the other question that I wanted to answer is, from all these students, what was the goal of it? What did they wanted from this experience? And only 4% of the students were looking for a serious relationship. So the majority of them just wanted to have some fun, which we cannot blame them. So in conclusion, this just kind of gave me a flavor of the sample of students that we had. And also it led me to one question that I couldn't answer in the end, was the sample really biased in relationship to the teachers itself? Were just students of these particular teachers that kind of had more exposure to the research? I tried to research that and I couldn't find an answer. So maybe it's something that we can pick up in the future. And I'll give it back to Amanda.
Awesome, thanks Nisa. Thanks also for giving such a nice, thorough introduction to what the data is actually about, because that means I don't have to. Thank you. Okay, so I think you can see already, if you can see the screen, that my viz is very, very different from Nisa's. So in the run-up to giving this presentation, I went through a bit of an emotional roller coaster. I don't know about, well, probably not all of you, but some of you might feel the same as me. I get really intimidated by some of the Tableau community and just how simply amazing and beautiful their data visualizations can be. I was especially nervous about this because Nisa's one of those people and I had to present with her. I say I had to. I enjoy presenting with you. But yeah, on the other hand, this also very much drives home our data. Nisa made a really beautiful viz, which I know she said was exploratory rather than explanatory. I did find that the way Nisa sets up her vizzes always really does tell you a clear-cut story and guides you through it. Whereas the visualization that I've built for today is much more of an exploratory tool. So I have, as I said, I've been trying really hard to be one of these fantastic viz designers. I've been trying, but for today, I have actually just gone back to my roots. I've gone back to my default position of what comes more naturally to me. And that is really just a quick, simple, easy tool, which allows you to answer as many questions as possible. So what I've done for this, I have just created essentially one very, very simple viz, which is essentially, actually, I want to say it's a bit of a glorified bar chart. It's not. It is, they're area charts, but essentially what we're doing is I'm looking at the five different character attributes of all of the participants and how they rated each other. That's attractiveness, intelligence, sincerity, fun, shared interests, and ambition. And so they rated out of 100 how important this was to them. So I found it interesting to look at two different parts of this. The first one is, in general, sort of before speed dating, what do they find is important, or how important do they rate these? And then I wanted to see how that changes when they have to make their snap decision, their sort of like love at first sight moment in their 4-minute speed date. So this was quite interesting. Then for my 5 variables that I picked, I was quite interested in seeing how people's backgrounds affect what they find important in their partner. So for this, I looked at the ethnic background and the importance of religion. I also looked at age and gender, because this also makes up very much of who you are. I also, just like Nisa, looked at the goals or your intentions for the night, just because I thought it was really interesting. So my hypothesis for this is that your ethnic background makes you view what you value differently. And then I split this by gender and age, etc. Okay. I've already explained the chart to you. So again, so I've just looked at basically the before and at judgment time, the average ratings, and then the dotted line just shows you what the overall average is, so that you can see what the change is when we start to filter through the different data. So the first thing that's interesting to look at is a breakdown by gender. So, okay, actually, hang on. Let's start at the very beginning. If we look at, on average, what people find most important in their partners, both before and at moment of judgment, is attractiveness. Okay, that's fair. I suppose it is the first thing you see, and if you're going to make an impact, a snap judgment, that's what you're going to see first. That's fair. If we break this down by gender, we could immediately see that males actually find attractiveness more important than females. Females actually find sincerity and intelligence more important than males do, whereas the males really like their partners to be fun, which, that's totally fair. Another thing that I noticed when you start looking through the ages of the participants, sorry about that. If you look at the ages, strangely, the younger ages actually rated attractiveness as less important than the older participants, which I thought actually was really interesting. I thought I was more shallow when I was young, so, revelation for me. Another thing I found really interesting actually was, if you look at the goals of the speed daters, those who have more serious intentions, like those looking for a relationship, really all they care about really is how attractive that person is. Not much regard for how ambitious they are. And by the end of the night, even if they thought it was slightly important in the beginning, by the end of the night, absolutely no consideration to how ambitious they are, which I thought was quite funny. Whereas you look at the people who came to the speed dating because they thought it might be fun, they are significantly more balanced in the way they, in the partners that they want to have. Attractiveness still pretty high, but a lot more balanced. So in answering my questions about the ethnic background, you see the participants were split into 4 different groups. So on average, if we choose the Asian and Pacific Islanders, I did notice that here attractiveness is a lot less important than the average, whereas things like sincerity are a lot more important to this group of people. Whereas I think it was Latinos, yeah, this was quite funny to see, really rate looks very highly, whereas everything else rates below average. Yes, and then the last part that we looked at was just the relative importance of religion, and as you can see, as you go higher, yes, attractiveness becomes much less important. Sincerity, intelligence goes top. Just one last thing I want to say that I found really interesting is that on the whole, no matter who you are, when you describe your perfect mates, and when you actually have to make that snap decision, in that snap decision moment, everybody actually finds their physical attractiveness is more important, which is totally fair, because at that point, that is what you have to base your decision on. If you have 4 minutes to decide anyway. Yes, so that was my visualization.
So, and well, and this kind of concludes what the research that we did on ourselves too, because we found out that although we went through the same training, kind of same background, kind of like the same things,
Yeah.
and agree in almost everything.
True.
Yeah, we don't fight much. We found that the data set itself is like a painting. Depending on the person that is looking at it, you can see different things. Like this painting that we put here, you can see a young lady or an old elderly lady. So it's always important to have a fresh pair of eyes to have a look and to find another insights that sometimes we can miss. And that's why teamwork is so important. Requirements gathering is so important. And keeping the stakeholders close to us is really important. What do you think, Nan?
I absolutely agree.
Oh, thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we shall see if we have any questions for us today.
Amanda and Nisa, that was awesome. Thank you so much for starting our afternoon off on such a great note.
Oh, thank you. So Michael has asked us if we will be sharing the Tableau public. Yes, we will. We'll put it. Yeah, and see what are your findings, Michael. You can then share with us. Thank you so much.